Panel with Tim Kalishaw, who I don't even know anymore. Today, check this out. The only shooter in America that can say they shot the lights out today.
Whoa.
Yeah, that went in. Let's go around the horn.
How do we know that went in?
Oh, we know that was an Ocean's 11 type.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reali.
Limited, something to monitor. He could be seen flexing. Not sure if we're talking about Tom Brady or Tim Kalishaw. Look close at practice today. Glove, and there's an extra something on the thumb of the throwing hand. Karen Garigian, Boston Herald. Tom Brady's hand injury is not a good omen for Patriots. Pablo, something or nothing?
I'm inclined to say that this is going to be nothing. And the first reason, of course, is that Bill Belichick does not surrender medical information that qualifies as a competitive advantage willingly. That's just not a thing we've ever known him to do. So if I'm the Jaguars, I'm looking very hard at this and then dismissing it. But the second reason why I would say this is probably nothing is because as much as we want to make fun of Alex Guerrero for being this guy who claims he can prevent cancer, one of the things we know about Tom Brady is that the man has only missed games once due to injury when he got his knee torn up in 2008. Every other time he has played through injury, and he's been more or less the greatest quarterback of all time. So the question you ask yourself is this hand injury something that makes you worry given that resume of medical information? And the answer has to be no.
Let's see if Clinton answers it the same way.
Yeah, I disagree entirely. I think it's definitely something. It's his throwing hand, which by default means it matters when he's trying to play football. I mean, come on. You talk about the fact that Belichick doesn't give away any of this information. Lord knows what Guerrero's going to do. Now that it's been revealed that these two actually don't like each other, it's kind of a weird situation. But overall, I think it gives the Jags some measure of hope that Tom Brady is not at 100%. And that's what matters the most. Hurting somebody's hand and going after an injury isn't that hard. You can just use your own hand, and Calais Campbell, as I mentioned yesterday, has some pretty big ones of his own.
So let's say Tom Brady's less than 100%, Clinton. At what percentage? Fill in the number. Does it make it an even matchup or maybe even advantage Jaguars?
I don't know that it's, okay, I'll just say 75, but I think the point is here that if the Jags believe something is wrong with the Pats, considering how that team plays from a psychological standpoint, I think it helped them a lot.
Tim, you agree?
I think 75 is too low. I think it's in the 82 to 84 range, actually. And what I'm worried about here is 3 days before the game, he's got his hands look like Peter Parker out there. That's an odd look for a quarterback to have when he's getting ready to play the team with the second most sacks in the league this year. Now, I don't think I'm with Pablo. I don't think he's going to miss the game, but I don't think that's the point. I think if there's anything a little bit wrong with his thumb a couple days before the game, that's going to be a problem. He's going to get hit. He's going to get sacked. He's probably get hit on the thumb. I think that's an issue.
And Woody Page, where are you with this? Are you of the school of thought that if Belichick's giving the information out, we have to question it immediately? It's probably just, smoke and mirrors. Or do you think there's something here?
No, I don't think there's anything here. I'm not a doctor, but I used to watch St. Elsewhere, and I would recommend the RICE project. And what is RICE? That's rest, that's ice, that's compression, and that's elevation. And if you do
you got them all. Nicely done, Doctor.
If you do them all for 72 hours, then that problem goes away. The reason why he's wearing two gloves, if you looked at the other players very closely, they're all wearing two gloves. Guess what? It's cold there. That's why he's got on two gloves, and so he possibly will wear them both. But no problem. No problem.
By the way, I'm not saying that the Jaguars aren't a really problematic matchup for the Patriots. A lot of the things the Jaguars do is very bad news for the Patriots, but Tom Brady, this hand, that's not going to be the thing that undoes him. He had a walking boot before the Super Bowl against the Giants, if you may recall that. Like, the dude plays through injuries, he had broken ribs.
How did that go?
All of this stuff.
Who won that game, Pablo?
It wasn't Tom Brady's fault that he lost that game. That was not the reason. Let's be clear
about that. Not your fault you have 0 points, but you have 0 points right now. We're going to move on. NBA, we're going to do it again. Ready? Put the counter up. 0 days without a workplace accident. Hornets Wizards last night. Let's talk about the one from a couple nights ago. The fallout from the breached locker room. 2-game suspensions for Trevor Ariza and Gerald Green. Nothing for Peacemaker Chris Paul and James Harden or any Clipper like Griffin, Austin Rivers. The Rockets were decidedly nonplussed about Clippers not being punished in any way. Woody, how do you think the NBA handled this?
I think they handled it perfectly well. If you go in and defy the sanctity of the other team's locker room, having been around the game for 50 years, that's about as tough a violation as you could possibly have. So I will accept the 2-game suspension. That seems a little high, maybe 1, but on the other side, no. If you eject players, if you eject coaches, that should be the end of it. They're going to get fined. And so I thought that what the NBA did here in this situation was investigate it well. They saw that there were peacemakers. They saw that there were troublemakers. They saw there were people not involved in what happened after the game, and they did the right thing.
Tim Kalishaw?
I mean, I'm just curious how they came to the conclusion very quickly that these 2 Rockets are totally responsible for it, and they're getting suspended, and these other guys who went over there, they're fine. They were peacemakers. How, that's interesting they reached that conclusion this quickly. I thought Blake Griffin would get something, an additional fine beyond the ejection or something for his behavior in the game, although all these ideas that he bumped into or hit D'Antoni, nobody seems to have very good video of that happening. D'Antoni seems to remember it, but nobody can really find it. But Blake is in the middle of everything, and Blake's, throwing the basketball at the guy. He didn't try to throw it at Eric Gordon. He tried to throw it through Eric Gordon. I thought that was a little much, so I thought he might get a little bit of a penalty, but not suspended. He's not the one who left his locker room.
Clinton Yates?
For all the 2-minute reports that we get for how the referees behave, I feel like I need a lot more explanation for what these suspensions are. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it, but I don't really understand the rationale, which is ultimately what I have a problem with. It doesn't seem to make sense why one guy gets one thing and one person gets another. I happen to find the breaching of the locker room to be a very bad situation that deserved more than 2 games, but to say that one guy was a peacemaker when then another guy gets a tech just for saying something wrong in a game somewhere else, I don't understand. It's very inconsistent and it's confusing.
Pablo Torre?
More information is something that I welcome, but I want to applaud the NBA here because this is not something that the NFL would have ruled on like this. It's not something that the NBA of old maybe would have ruled on like this. And I say that because they ruled with a sense of humor, seemingly, and perspective. And I say that because I was awake at 2 a.m. watching all of this live. I had no reason to watch or enjoy the proceedings of that night, but for this scandal. Like, this was an amazing thing that was fun for me and for many other NBA fans. The NBA feels like they're the cool principal who are like, look, guys, we're going to let you do a lot. You can throw balls at people. You can curse at each other. You can do all sorts of things, but just don't enter the locker room or don't be the ringleaders of the group entering the locker room. Short of that, you could be James Harden, Chris Paul, even be there, but just don't be the instigators. That seems like a pretty flexible line that I approve of.
In 8 days, I think is what it was, with punches thrown in 4 of them. You think the NBA is all right with that because it's getting people talking about it. People like to see it. People like to compare whether it's as physical as it was in the 90s.
This was entertainment. Like, all of this was fun and funny. Who are the victims here? I don't know. I get the locker room line being drawn, but short of that,
what do you want to answer that question?
I'm not bothered by any of it.
Well, I would be okay with it. The visiting team has their food out in the hallway. If they think the home team is getting better food, maybe you go up and approach. But there needs to be more security at the front and back doors of the locker room, and you won't have the problem.
Kalishaw.
I think the league's okay with all this as long as it stays at this level. If Aaron Flawless starts connecting with these punches, then they're going to have issues and they're going to have to step everything back.
Which is why it's completely disingenuous. If you've got these rules that don't allow people to even throw punches, but at the same time you guys got guys like Popovich making fun of the fact that nobody seems to fight in the league, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everybody's making fun of the fact that nobody connects on these punches or that they used to fight more in the 90s. How do you think David Stern would have ruled yesterday? Just throw it out there. How many games do you think?
Iron fist.
Yeah, 5 games.
Iron fist for everyone.
Cinco.
Same.
Basketball reasons. Let's put the counter back up again because we've got 0 days without players versus refs. Clinton, you were just alluding to this. The technical foul to Courtney Lee on the jump ball came in a 3-point game with 17 seconds left.
You can't just come over there and just give me a tech because you're mad at me about something. Like, if both of us is talking that has nothing to do with you, no violent talk, no cuss words was even said, that's a double tech situation.
Referee Derek Stafford, quote, Courtney Lee used what I considered inappropriate language towards the young man, so I called it technical foul. Tim, are you all right with that tech being called in that situation?
No, and this is a tough one because Derek Stafford's been a ref for 25 years. He doesn't have a history of calling techs for absolutely no reason and no foul language. So you feel like something was done, but he also knows he's been there 25 years. It's a 3-point game with 17 seconds to go. A technical foul is pretty much going to take the game out of the Knicks' hands. The jump ball they're still alive if they win that. And so I think he's got to use, better judgment. Unless Courtney Lee just said the worst thing in the world, and he's adamant he didn't say anything at all that should have drawn this. I don't think you can call it technical.
Glenn Yates?
I have a feeling I know what Courtney Lee said that I won't repeat on this show. It's only the third tech of his career, but I'm fine with it in this situation. I mean, he's saying that the ref can't give him a technical for being mad at him. I thought that's kind of what technicals were for. If you do something that the referee is not down for you to do, that he's told you not to do, he's going to go ahead and tee you up. Look, I know that it was weird, but everything now is a case-by-case situation. And in this case, I think it made sense. It was late in the game, but look, if you tell a guy, hey, knock it off, and you don't knock it off, you're getting a tee.
Pablo Torre?
So I actually have great sympathy for NBA refs because, in general, no one knows what a foul is by definition, right? That's the rule. Like, we don't know, we don't call these things consistently, all of that. But this is different, and this is where I don't have sympathy, because one of the rules I think you have to abide by if you're a referee in this game, an entertainment product, don't decide the games for the players whenever possible. This just does not rise to the level of needing to settle a game that was within 3 because of some language. Don't be the bad principal. Be the good principal. Look, I get why you can't be HBO if you're the NBA, but cursing does not hurt anybody, especially when we don't even know what the curse word is. Who is, again, victimized here? You didn't need to do that. That was unnecessary, and it was uncalled for.
Woody Page?
I think Stafford should have showed some leadership as a referee there, go over and warn him and say, hey, in this situation, I'm not going to give you a technical, but if you don't shut it up, I am. So I think he should have done that. On the other side, for Lee to make references to bringing back Joey Crawford, of all people, he wants Joey Crawford back, who had all sorts of problems with the San Antonio Spurs and Tim Duncan. No, these referees are trying their best. They're trying their best in this league to referee and officiate, be policemen and all that, but the referee should have realized in that situation you don't let a technical foul determine the outcome of the game.
It is an interesting point you bring up, Woody, because we've heard from the players that their referees now are too new, too young, don't know how the game's been played for the last 10, 20 years. But then again, if Crawford was in the game, they would be saying the same thing they said about Stafford if it was Crawford. I mean, or if it was a new referee.
He did warn him.
We've been warned. We're going to take a break right here. We'll be back.
Warn him again.
Story of the day. Closing story, we addressed what's become one of the largest sexual abuse cases going to court. Our national shame, USA Gymnastics. The years of abuse from team physician Larry Nassar and enabling of that abuse from USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University, where he was employed and treated athletes. As this trial continues, hours upon hours of painful and strong testimony from victims, many are now wondering how this could happen and how those that enabled need to be held accountable. A Detroit News report that 14 Michigan State employees knew has the editorial board of Michigan State students' newspaper asking for University President Lou Anna Simon to step down. Also today, many wondering whether the silence now from the NCAA is symptomatic of the greater problem. National problem, we can start with questions like Jay Billis asked today, wondering where the NCAA is and viewing the inaction with interest in regards to how they acted against Penn State. But Pablo, I'll start with you. How should the NCAA view this?
Well, the NCAA, as Jay Billis pointed out, has one example of precedent, so to speak, to look at. And the thing about this case is that it is not like Penn State in so many ways. And it is bigger than Penn State in so many ways, at the least of all is scale. The sheer scale, the number of victims, we're talking about 150 lawsuits, apparently, that are being pursued right now. We're talking about 20 years, dating back to the first alleged victim to come out and talk about this, Larissa Boyce, in 1997. We're talking about, according to the Detroit News, 14 people at Michigan State who were allegedly complicit in this. So this is, in some sense, the biggest challenge the NCAA has faced in terms of how do we, as a sports organization, punish. And I don't envy their position, but they should be aware that this is unlike anything else they've dealt with, and we should be aware of that too.
Glenn Yates?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we talk about the NCAA because it's how we get into this as a sports story. But as far as I'm concerned, this is much bigger than that. This is a firings and this is a law enforcement situation. If you think about the level of institutional lack of control that had to go on here in order for this to continue, we're not talking about an assistant football coach. We're talking about a doctor. that vastly changes what the relationship is between these alleged victims and what he did. I think it is, frankly, scarier on some levels, in my opinion, in terms of what you're going to have to do to find out all of the problems here. It is not a good circumstance, but listen, to me, what the NCAA does is almost irrelevant to me as a human being on this earth. I think people deserve to be behind bars as a result of what went down in East Lansing.
Tim Calishaw?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. It's an incredibly awful story, and nobody really at this point needs to worry about Michigan State sanctions. That will come over time. You need to wait and see. It's hard to know initially the complaints, where they went, and how much the gymnastics coach passed on, and how long it took to get to the next level, and how soon it got to the president. As Pablo said, this has been going on, these reports, since 1997, and this is very difficult compared to the horrific Penn State case, where many of the crimes were happening right there in the locker room, and coaches knew about them, and how they handled or mishandled the information was a big part of the case. This is in a doctor's office, and we tend to have way too much belief and power of this as a doctor. He's an Olympic doctor. These stories can't possibly be true, and I think that's why it dragged on for so many years.
Woody Page?
I don't know that I even want the NCAA to do an investigation. I don't trust the NCAA in an investigation of this type. I don't like the way that the NCAA handled the Penn State scandal. They changed, the officials there at the NCAA office changed their mind. They went back and forth on what they did. I think that you leave it up to as Pablo talked about, there are more than 150 civil cases. There are investigative authorities in the police departments and grand juries that should be doing the investigation, not the NCAA. Then the NCAA, after it sees what occurs in society, it can react in regard to the athletic programs in Michigan State. But I think right now the best thing for the NCAA is to stay out of the way.
Pablo, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and one thing that's relevant to the NCAA's purview, so many of these victims are actual college athletes, and not just any college athletes, the faces of the sport. This is different from Penn State in that regard. I'm not comparing the morality of the cases or the victims, but my God, this is so squarely in their purview as the institution overseeing college sports.
Yeah. But still, I mean, Larissa Boyce, you brought her up, the first athlete to come forward. She's giving her statement this week. She asked the university president to attend in the courtroom to support her, and heard back from the university president that the schedule was full. But here's a compromise. I'll watch the live stream. That's the whole thing here. The callousness, the lack of regard for female athletes, the systemic sexism in this country. If we're asking how does this happen, and this is Nassar, this is Sandusky, this is the church, this is Me Too, this is Time's Up, it lives in silence. So we have to be able to talk about the uncomfortable. Predators thrive in silence and the distraction of our culture, even decent people. The hope that somebody else will speak up. I'm tired, I'm not going to speak up. This needs to be the biggest story in America. And I appreciate you all turning up the volume here. We are going to move on with the show, which means we're going to say goodbye to Woody Page and Pablo Torre right now. Tim Calishaw, Clinton Yates have a showdown in 2 minutes. Thanks. Announcing that Super Bowl referee will be Gene Steratore. He was on hand last week for Keenan the Diggs. Also in his career, yes, the Calvin Johnson catch. Yes, the Des Bryant catch. And the index card to measure a first down game from this season. Tim, is he the right man for the job?
Yes, he is. As the only panelist who was at that Cowboys-Raiders game where he used that index card and elevated himself to your go-to ref for entertainment value, he's the guy you want out there. He did that with kind of a smirk on his face that bothered the Raiders. It was okay with the rest.
The smirk heard around the world, and let's not also forget that he was at the Vikings game, and that game didn't end until he announced to America with the camera only on him that it was over. Might be the mating call, self-promotion that is. It worked in this case.
What's more likely, that he whips out an index card in the Super Bowl and we have to debate that and buy or sell, or that there's a catch rule that's up in the air? Catch rule up in the air is already an 8-2 of the Super. Let's put it in right now. We'll move on. Star of the night from last night, Gabby Ortiz, hitting the three as the lights went out. What do you think's worse? Having the lights go out while you're playing, or playing in an empty arena like the Checkers and Tigers did after there was 4 inches of snow in Charlotte, Clinton?
It's definitely playing in an empty arena. I was there when the O's had to play the White Sox because Major League Baseball locked everybody out. I was also at a WNBA game one time where the lights went off, and you know what they did? They had a dance party. It was awesome.
No, it's definitely worse to play with the lights out. I dare say, Clinton, you've spent most of your athletic career playing in stadiums that are empty. So I don't think it's that hard to do that.
So you read the column.
I mean, she's just releasing her shot. She just got releasing that shot, and the lights going.
I don't agree with you, Khaled
Gotta be
Shaw,
much worse.
but you're getting points for the stick 'em and FaceTime is yours.
Okay, sometimes the best FaceTimes are recycled FaceTimes, and I have to do this once a year. And before the Vikings-Saints game became a game for the ages, it was another game where the refs, not Gene Steratore, the official downfield, screwed up with a pass interference call that cost the Saints 34 yards when it was really offensive interference. You have to let coaches challenge pass interference. Bill Belichick knows this. I know this. I don't know why other people don't know this. It's the most important call in the game. It doesn't add to the length of games. Doesn't add to the challenge.
Challenge pass
It's something else.
Anybody in favor of just 15 yards like in college? Raise a hand.
Would be in
Thumbs up,
favor of
thumbs
that
down.
too. It's also a good answer.
Debate continues tomorrow. We're on a 23.5 hour